StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and today's topic, and welcome to the show, and today's topic is do your homework. Yes, do your homework. I know you're not in school anymore, but you still got to do your homework, and I'll explain what I mean by that as we get into today's topic. Now, before I get into that, let me remind you that I do have a text message line where I want you to text me and tell me the most valuable insight, the best idea, something new that you're thinking, or something new that you're going to be doing based on what you heard here today. Or if you have a question, comment, response to anything that I've said here today, or if you just want to get my daily motivation text messages, which I send out every single morning to the people who are in my texting community, you can do all of those things by just sending me a text right now at the number 305-384-6894. Again, that's 305-384-6894. Now, the reason why the topic here today, do your homework, why this came about, is I was listening to an interview where Malcolm Gladwell, who's the author of several top-selling books, including his I don't think this is the most recent, but the last one of his that I read, I think I have his newest book, but I haven't read it yet. The last one of his that I read was a book called Talking to Strangers. And in this interview, I think he was on the Megyn Kelly show is where he said this. He was talking about how in that book, Talking to Strangers, is actually a very good book. So those of you who haven't read that, go get it. And by the way, for those of you who have never heard me say this before, anytime you hear me mention a book on this show, you need to go get it. All right, don't even worry about what's it about. Is it any, no, don't even worry about whether I'm telling you is good or not. If I mention the book, you need to go read it. All right, even if I mention a book to say that I disagree with it, you need to go read it, because we got to keep our minds open here and know everything that's going on from every side of the conversation. So Malcolm Gladwell's book, Talking to Strangers, which I will tell you what it's about because it is good context for what I'm sharing here. The book is about how, as human beings, we often misinterpret what other people are doing or misinterpret what other people are thinking, because as the saying goes, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are, right? We see ourselves in other people's actions, words, and thoughts, or at least what we think are their thoughts, and we are looking at everything through our own paradigm, through our own lenses. So that book is all about how a lot of times we misinterpret what another person is trying to get across, and it leads to outcomes that we often don't want, for lack of a better description. But read the book itself. Malcolm Gladwell words it a lot better than me because it's his book. But anyway, in that book, Malcolm Gladwell talks about the Penn State case that happened a few years ago. When was that? I can't remember. Maybe 10 years ago. Situation at Penn State where Jerry Sandusky, who was an assistant football coach, a long-time assistant football coach at Penn State, had been found guilty of sexual assault of a bunch of underage boys for many years, many of whom came forward and testified against him in this big case that just shook the entire Penn State community. Now, I went to college at Penn State. I went to the Altoona campus where I graduated from, but spent a lot of time in State College, and also was, as an athlete at Penn State Altoona, we used to do these events called Second Mile, which is a group that was started by Jerry Sandusky. And that group, what they would do it was like once the first Saturday of every month or something like that, all the athletes on our campus, we would come to the gym facility, and a bunch of kids from the area, like underprivileged kids, maybe kids who are from foster homes and stuff like that, they would come around with the chaperones, and we would just do fun events with the kids. It was just a way to give some enrichment to these kids who otherwise didn't have, studies have shown, didn't have positive outlooks for their lives. And Jerry Sandusky had actually started the Second Mile, which was a great program, and that program still exists. And this was where Jerry Sandusky was actually getting his access to these young boys, was because of this program. So it was a whole big thing. But what ended up happening was, in that Penn State situation, there was a different assistant coach who went into a locker room at some point, and he thought, or said that he thought, or he heard, or he intuited, let's say he either saw it or he heard that Jerry Sandusky, the other assistant coach, might have been involved in some foul play with a young boy in the locker room. But the assistant coach didn't go and confront them or do anything. He went and told his boss, which was Penn State's football coach at the time, the legendary Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno went and told his boss, which is what he was supposed to do, according to Gladwell, and I'm tying all this back to what our topic is here today. And it ended up, eventually, once the shit hit the fan, this became a big firestorm. Joe Paterno got fired from his job. Joe Paterno's statue got removed at Penn State University. And Joe Paterno is the most famous person to ever come through State College, Pennsylvania. Got his statue removed. Jerry Sandusky did go to jail. He went to prison because he was found guilty of what he did. The assistant coach who initially blew the whistle and said, hey, I saw or heard or thought I saw Jerry Sandusky doing some foul play in the locker room, he was just being attacked from all sides by the Penn State community because he was linked to, all right, because you said something, now Joe Paterno's getting taken down. And so it became this whole big thing. But anyway, and Joe Paterno ended up passing away shortly after they took his statue down, fired him from his job. And this guy, he kind of died in disgrace in a way. Now, there are a bunch of people who are part of the Penn State community who will forever say, no, Joe Paterno didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing wrong with what Joe Paterno did. He's not disgraced. And there are a bunch of people on the other side who say he is disgraced because when he heard that these kids were possibly being sexually assaulted by a grown man, he didn't do enough. That was the whole thing. He didn't do enough. He didn't call the cops. He didn't go approach Jerry Sandusky. He didn't do enough. All he did was go tell his boss, and he just took his hands off of the situation. But what Malcolm Gladwell said, all right, so what I just told you is what did happen there. I'm paraphrasing a ton of it. You can go read about it yourself. There will be books written on this whole situation, probably are already. But what Malcolm Gladwell mentioned in his book, Talking to Strangers, and the reason why he mentioned this story in his book is that there were some conclusions that he came to, Malcolm Gladwell, that made many people angry. He came to some conclusions that kind of, again, according to who you're listening to, were kind of, apologetic to Joe Paterno and the assistant coach. His name was Mike McQuarrie, who initially blew the whistle on this whole thing. We shouldn't even call it blowing the whistle, who raised suspicion by pointing out what he thought he saw or heard in that Penn State football building locker room. And many people got mad at Malcolm Gladwell for coming to some conclusions that would make Joe Paterno seem like he did exactly what he was supposed to do and that he wasn't wrong for it not, quote unquote, doing enough in the situation. And Malcolm Gladwell, and here's where this all ties to today's topic. Malcolm Gladwell defended his point by saying the following thing, and I'm paraphrasing Malcolm Gladwell. He said, in order for him, as Gladwell, to write what he wrote in his book, Talking to Strangers, about the Penn State case and about Joe Paterno and about why Joe Paterno actually was not wrong and he didn't do anything wrong in this situation, was I, as the author, this is Malcolm Gladwell talking, I read thousands of pages of transcripts of that case. All the court transcripts, all the court documents are publicly available for everybody to see and use as they wish. Malcolm Gladwell said, before I wrote about that story in my book, I read all the transcripts. I know exactly what got said on the stand by everybody who was giving sworn testimony in the case. And many of the journalists who then read his book and then criticized Gladwell for his apologetic tone towards the people at Penn State, they didn't even read the transcripts. This is Malcolm Gladwell's assertion in this recent interview that I heard him talking. And this is the exact same thing that I said when I was asking everyone who's listening to this about over the recent months. There was a whole blow up, and I guess it's still going on, about voter ID laws in many states across the United States, where they had been and are still being framed as some form of Jim Crow 2.0, some kind of racist law that is allegedly trying to block people of color from voting. And for the most part, it's the Democratic Party has said that these voter ID laws they're trying to be instituted by the Republican Party because the Republicans are trying to stop people of color to vote, because ostensibly the people of color, if they can vote, they're going to vote for the Democrats. And a bunch of people have gone on and pushed this whole concept. All right, these voter ID laws are racist. They're trying to stop black people from voting. It's like Jim Crow laws all over again in 2021. And my question was to anyone who is going out and repeating that talking point is this: have you actually read the bills? The voter ID laws that people are trying to institute and are being fought against, regardless of who told you what the bill said, regardless of what they said is in the bill, regardless of what they have told you you should believe about the bill. My question is, before you go around asserting what something is, do you have your own information, or are you going off of what somebody told you? Did you read the bill? Because the voter ID law in the state of Georgia, because that's where this started. It started in the state of Georgia, because Georgia was a contentious state in the 2020 presidential election. That voter ID bill, I went and looked it up. I did not read it myself. I went and looked it up. It's 95 pages of text. No pictures, 95 pages. Have you read the bill? If you have not read it, then who are you to assert that there is anything right or wrong with the bill? And I even asked this question on social media. I posted on social media and said, can anyone tell me what exactly is in this bill that makes it racist or makes it Jim Crow? And nobody responded. What's in the bill that makes it so bad? And I even asked, is anyone who's actually read the bill who can tell me anything about the bill that is wrong? Nobody said anything. And the reason is most people haven't read it. They're just going off of what some media platform or what some person that they trust on the internet has told them. And this is what I've already told you all. I told you in episode number 1474, stop watching the news. I told you in episode 1777 that the truth is rarely sexy, i.e., aka why you need to stop trusting the media, all media, social media and mainstream media. And these days, you just have to do more work to get facts. To get objective facts, you have to do more work these days than we had to do 10 years ago. Now you got to get your own information. You can't trust anyone because everyone has an angle. And I did an episode about understanding everybody's angles. You should know people's angles so that you know why they may be telling you the things that they're telling you, and why they may slant what they're telling you in a certain way because they want you to feel the same way that they feel. That was episode number 750. Know your angles and know the angles of other people so that you know why they're telling you what they're telling you, maybe the way that they're telling it to you. So today what we're talking about is doing your own homework so that you can be an actual informed person. Excuse me. A lot of people think that they're informed when they're getting their information from people who have an angle. In other words, someone is giving you slanted information based on how they want you to feel, and then you feel that you're informed because you got that information, but you don't even realize that the information is slanted. And this is how people become uninformed, but think they are informed, and this is how conflict is created. So you don't want to be another voice in the cacophony of noise. Then what you need to do is actually get yourself informed to get your own information. Today, I'm going to explain to you how to actually do that. And the concept is, and that's the topic, that's the title of today's masterclass, do your homework. Point number one. Today's topic, again, is doing your homework. Number one, read. R-E-A-D, read. The saying goes, if you want to hide something from people, put it in a book. I told you in episode number 1717, 3 truths about human beings. People are lazy, people don't think, and people don't read. These are 3 truths about human beings. So, knowing these truths, the opportunity is always in the opposites. That was covered in episode number 1025. So, if you want opportunity in life, the best thing to do is look at what everybody else is doing or not doing and do the opposite. So since people are lazy, don't think, and don't read, the opposite for you, at least as it pertains to today's episode, is to read. Reading takes time, it requires thinking and introspection, and it may challenge your preconceived notions. And this is the reason why many people don't read. Because they don't want to invest the time, the most valuable resource you have. They don't want to think and possibly look at some ideas or opinions that they've had and wonder, maybe I might have some incorrect assumptions here. And they don't want to challenge their preconceived notions. The details are more often written than spoken. I don't know why this is, but it's true. I mean, if you think about it, what's easier to consume? A YouTube video, a 10-minute YouTube video, or an article that takes you 10 minutes to read? And which one do more people choose? I mean, you can look very easily. You can see YouTube is more popular than a library. The details are usually in written format. The details are reading those transcripts that Malcolm Gladwell read to know exactly word for word what everybody said when they were on the stand with their hand on the Bible giving sworn testimony, as opposed to the 3-minute articles, blog posts, and YouTube videos that people made talking about that Penn State situation when it occurred. And listen, let me be clear about something. I'll offer you a disclaimer here. You don't have to go read all the transcripts of a court case, nor do you have to go read a 95-page voter ID bill. But if you don't want to do those things, then you probably, this is just my suggestion to you, you probably don't want to be going around offering an opinion on any of those topics, because you know that you don't have the information. Why would you offer an opinion on something when you know you don't have the information? When you haven't done the reading, you haven't gotten the information from the source. You got it from someone who is telling you what the source said. Or how do you know that they're telling you exactly what happened? How many people do you know who are objective? How many people do you know who are completely objective on most of the topics that they talk about? You shouldn't have an answer, because almost nobody is objective. Even people who are trying to be objective have biases. In episode number 1800, I told you how objectivity became the new controversy. These days, being objective about something is actually the more controversial thing to do, because everybody is so polarized, because people think that they have the right information, but where they get the information from? From someone or something that has its own angle. So you think you got direct objective information, but you got it from somebody who has an angle, but you don't even realize it, so you think it's the direct information when it's not. In episode number 1808, I also told you how to be an objective person. So if you haven't listened to those two, make sure you go check those out. The opportunity, everybody, is always in the opposites. And reading takes energy, it takes time. It will challenge your preconceived notions, especially when you read something that might go against what you already thought. And here's the biggest challenge is most people, if they think that what they're about to read will go against something that they already thought, they won't even read it, because they do not want to open themselves up to the possibility that their preconceived notions may be challenged. And this is why the details are found in reading. And this is why if you want to hide information from people, you put it in a book, because most people will never read it. So if you want to be actually informed to the point that you can be informing other people, start reading. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is do your homework. Number 2, do not equate your beliefs and widely held assumptions to facts. Let me repeat that one. Your beliefs and widely held assumptions are not facts. They are beliefs and assumptions. And there's a strong, hard, bold line in between a belief or assumption or an opinion, and on the other side of that line are actual facts. Now, in order for you to realize the difference between these two and to start thinking, understanding these differences, it takes a level of disagreeableness, which I talked about in episode 1698, and also a level of critical thinking, a skill of critical thinking, which is covered in episodes number 1826 and 1827. And many people lack both of these. Many people strive to be higher on the agreeableness scale. And agreeableness and disagreeableness are just personality traits, and disagreeable not meaning being negative. Disagreeable and agreeable are just every one of us leans to one side or the other when it comes to that, when it comes to our personality. And again, disagreeable does not mean being negative. Disagreeable means you're the type of person who is okay with not going along with the crowd. You're the type of person that's okay with going left when everybody else is going right. You're the type of person who looks at what everybody else is doing and says, I'm going to do it my way, do it different, and I'm going to do it better. Disagreeable people are those who go into solo ventures, people who become entrepreneurs, people who play solo sports, people who are okay being the one person in the group who disagrees with everybody else in the group. Whereas agreeable people are the exact opposite. These are the people who want to conform, people who want to follow along, people who want to compromise, people who want to get along, people who never want to be the one who stands out from everybody else in the group. Again, not as a positive or negative thing, but just as our personality traits, and every human being is unique. And also the skill of critical thinking, which is your ability to look at situations, look at ideas, look at opinions, look at things, and ask critical questions of them, not just accept everything that is presented to you on the surface. And these are two abilities that many people lack. Now, all of us were born with these abilities, but slowly they get drummed out of us, they get beat out of us, and because of our social conditioning, many people who start off with high levels of disagreeableness, they stop being so disagreeable because of the social cost of being disagreeable. Being disagreeable does come with a social cost, and that sometimes it can lead to isolation, at least for periods of time, temporary periods of time. And critical thinking often leads to disagreeableness, because when you're the only critical thinker in the room, you're going to be disagreeing with a whole lot of other people in the room. And there's a social cost to that many people don't want to stand. Many people, honestly, just don't have the balls to stand up to the fact that the rest of the room might disagree with them. I talked about having balls in episode 1796. For example, there's a person who I respect who recently said to me, we were talking about whatever topic we were talking about, and I was telling them that there's a book that I read that could give them more information. It was something that I said that they didn't quite understand. I said, well, listen, here's a book that I read, and I told them the name of the book, I told them the author, whatever. I said, I'll send you the book, I'll send you a link to the book, you can get the book, read it, and then you can get the information and you can understand what I understand. And this person said to me that if this book does indeed come to the same conclusions as this thing that you just shared with me that I don't agree with, I'm not even reading it. That's what they said to me. They out of hand rejected the book and said, I'm not even reading that book if this book asserts these things that I don't agree with. In other words, this person already had some preconceived notions that they did not want to be challenged. Therefore, they were not even willing to engage with anything that could possibly challenge their beliefs. This is intellectual laziness at best, and it's ignorance and stupidity at worst. And this is the exact opposite of doing your homework. All right, this is the person who doesn't do their homework, and then they just show up on test day, fail the test, and then they wonder why they failed the test. Do not make this mistake. Now, while doing so will keep you mentally comfortable and safe in your thoughts, it also holds you back in that you are stuck in your ways while the world is continually evolving. And being stuck in your ways does not necessarily mean that you're not willing, doesn't mean that you don't change your opinions and beliefs. Being stuck in your ways is when you are unwilling to have your opinions and beliefs challenged. Listen, I'll let you challenge my opinions and beliefs. Doesn't mean I'm going to change them. I might listen to what you had to say, and then I say, well, listen, I heard what you had to say, but listen to this thing, and I'll tell you what I got to say, and maybe I'll be even more firmly entrenched in my own beliefs that I had before you even showed up. But I'm at least willing to engage with you. I'm at least willing to listen to what you have to say that may challenge what I have to say. When you get to the point that you're not even willing to listen to or hear anything that possibly challenges your widely held assumptions, long held assumptions, and preconceived notions, that's when you start going backwards. That's when you become stuck in your ways. And it doesn't matter what age you are. You could be 65, stuck in your ways. You could be 25, stuck in your ways, when you are unwilling to have your preconceived notions challenged by anything or anyone who does not agree with you. And there are a lot of people who are like this these days, and it wasn't as many 20 years ago or 30 years ago as it is now. And again, social media, this is part of what social media has done. It wasn't specifically their aim, but it's something that they've done, because what social media wants to do is keep you engaged on their platforms. And what keeps you engaged is to give you more of what you already agree with, or give you something to attack that goes against what you agree with. And listen, negative energy travels faster than positive. And critical thinking does not travel fast at all. So critical thinking walks. So negative energy travels on a high speed G4 private plane. So be willing to entertain that there's another point of view out there. Again, doesn't mean you have to change yours. Just be willing to entertain those points of view and challenge your beliefs and assumptions. Again, doesn't mean you have to change them. Just be willing to have them challenged. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is do your homework. Number 3, know the areas for improvement and the failure points of your own position, point of view, business, or skill set. This is part of doing your homework. In business, they call this a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I think I may have done an episode on the SWOT analysis. Let me see. No, maybe I haven't. Maybe I should, though. Knowing your SWOT analysis, what are your weaknesses? What are the threats against your position, against the way that you think? And one reason why you need to know this is that your formidable opponents, they will know this. They will know your strengths, your weaknesses, they'll know your opportunities for gain, and they'll know the threats against your success, because they're going to use them against you. Another reason why you want to know this is because if and when you are challenged, you'll be challenged at your points of weakness. You'll be challenged at your points of threat. The places where you are most weak is usually where your opponents are going to challenge you. So you should probably know what they are ahead of time, so that when you do get into those challenging situations, you're ready to defend yourself. Another reason why you need to do your own SWOT analysis is that when you know where the challenges are coming from, you can actually prepare for them, as I just said. See, in life, as in something like any of you done a combat sport, or you watch combat sports like boxing or MMA or jiu-jitsu or anything like that, is the punches that is not the most powerful punches that knock people out. It's the punches that you don't see coming. It's the ones that you weren't prepared for to knock you out. It's not the ones that you know the guy's about to hit you. You can brace for it, and you can survive that punch. Even if they knock you down, you can get up. It's the one that you didn't see. That's the one that knocks you out. So when you reverse this, you can use it against your opposition. So the point then is, you need to know your opposition better than your opposition knows themselves. You need to know your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and you need to know theirs better than they do, so that when you do attack them and you hit them where it hurts, hit them not only where it hurts, but where they weren't even expecting to get hit. That's the one that knocks them out. It doesn't have to be the most powerful. It just has to be the most unexpected. But you got to do your homework in order to use somebody else's lack of homework against them. You have to out-prepare your opponent. You got to out-prepare the situation that you're coming up against. Understand your opponent doesn't have to be another person or another company that's selling the same product as you. Your opponent could just be life. Your opponent could just be the situation that you're going up against. The more prepared you are for that opponent, the situation, for your life, the more options you will have for defeating that situation. That's what it means to do your homework. So all that said, let's recap today's class, which is doing your homework. Malcolm Gladwell talked about how he offered a sympathetic view of Joe Paterno and the people at Penn State. In his book, Talking to Strangers, a bunch of media people criticized him for offering that sympathetic view of Joe Paterno. And Malcolm Gladwell defended himself by saying, well, I read all the transcripts in order to say what I'm saying. And these people, based on the way that they criticized me, it's clear they didn't even do their homework and read the transcripts, yet they're trying to criticize me on something that they clearly don't even have all the information on. And this is not an abnormal thing. It's not abnormality. People do this all the time these days, don't even have information, but they're going around asserting things, especially on extreme ends of the spectrum of certain topics, not even having the information based on what they read on Twitter or based on what some media outlet told them, not even understanding that every media outlet has an angle. So today we're going to talk about doing your own homework so that you can be an actual informed person, not just another voice making noise. Point number one, read. If you want to hide something from people, put it in a book, because people are lazy, people do not think, and people do not read. So the opportunity is in the opposites. Reading takes time, it requires thinking and introspection, and it will challenge your preconceived notions. Most people don't want to do any of those things, and that's why most people don't read. But informed people, they read. The opportunity, folks, is always in the opposites. Number two, do not equate your beliefs and widely held assumptions to be facts. This takes a level of disagreeableness and the skill of critical thinking, which many people do not have. A person I respect recently said to me, well, if such and such book has such and such ideas that they already have decided that they reject, they said, I won't even read that book. That is intellectual laziness at best, and ignorance and stupidity at worst. Is actually a combination of all of those. Do not make this mistake. It will keep you mentally comfortable and emotionally comfortable and safe in your thoughts, but it holds you back, and that you are stuck in your ways while the world is continually evolving. And evolution does not necessarily mean you have to change your ideas. It just means you are willing to challenge your ideas and challenge your assumptions. Many people are not willing to do either. Number three, know the areas for improvement and failure points of your own positions, businesses, and skill set. Why? Because your formidable opponents will know, and if and when you challenge them, they will challenge you in the points where you're weak. And if you know your opponent's weak points the way that you know your own, then you can better prepare for them and better prepare to defeat them. And your opponent does not have to be a person or business entity. Your opponent can be a situation. Your opponent can be life itself. The more prepared you are for a situation that you're going into, the more ready you will be to deal with that situation, because, as they say, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. So just because you think you know what you want to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen. So the better prepared you are with contingency plans for whatever life decides to throw at you, the better you'll be ready to deal with it. Send me a text message. Tell me the best insight you got from today's class. What are you going to do different? How are you going to think different based on what you heard today? What was your favorite quote of anything I said here today? My number is 305-384-6894. And if you would like, if you're interested in being coached by me directly, there's only one place that I offer that. That's at Work on Your Game University in my 3rd day mastermind. You can sign up for a call, hop on a Zoom with me. We can talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and how working with me could possibly be the bridge between the two. The website is workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Just click the button that says join the mastermind. You'll fill out a quick form. We'll send you my schedule. You get on the calendar. We'll hop on Zoom and we'll talk about what we need to talk about. Send me a text again. Tell me the best thing you got from today's class. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you're interested in being coached, joining the mastermind, and work on your game. Dre all day.